My list is actually top 5 omissions.
Listen to Janet!
Season 5 of Drive to Survive, which rhymes 3 times.
You surprised yourself there, did you, with the extra rhyme?
Yes. So Drive to Survive came out earlier, or I guess last Friday, and Formula One season starts this Sunday. So this is really the only period of time where Drive to Survive is a hot topic, because as soon as the season starts, everyone kind of forgets about it, which to Amin's point, it would make sense for them to release the episodes week by week, because the show gets like a week and then the season starts. So,
but they're avoiding things, or you've already noticed that there are things that are being avoided, or things that would be obviously very easy to cover if you were not compromised in any way in exchange for your access.
I don't think necessarily they were all purposely omitted. Some of the things, it seems like it was convenient for them to leave out because it would have been tricky for them to explain certain scenarios without making Formula One or the FIA look bad. And certain things they just like completely left people out of the whole season. So
is it stuff though that you found yourself craving to make it more interesting, or
stuff that like was things that happened during the season that were fairly big stories that if you just watch this show and you don't watch the sport very closely, you would just not know about. And that's why there's a little bit of a flaw inherently in the show, because it doesn't really cover everything. It's a great entertainment, like side dressing for Formula One. But and I really do like the show. There are things in the show that you don't find out about during the season, like insider video and stuff. There was like this very big thing that they caught on video from earlier in the season that they played in the show that no one had seen before. So like, there are things that make people look bad in the sport, but there's not a lot of things that make the sport look bad necessarily.
Yeah, there's a moment where one of the team principals says, because one of the teams last year had a Russian driver who was being funded by an oligarch, and they had to completely sever ties with them. And you hear the team principal on the phone with his boss going, "I'm never working with Russians ever again."
Like dropping F-bombs, like I'm done with
Right.
these effing Russians. I'm never
Right.
working with these effing Russians ever again.
Which is a pretty dangerous thing to say and have caught on camera. And yet they include it in the show. So they give you some morsels of access, but there are like a couple things where you go, oh man, I would really like to have known more about this thing.
Right. So
before we get to that, Jessica, can you just explain to me though, because this show,
Janet!
this show is legitimately responsible for the growth and popularity of this sport in the United States. Are you telling me that you think there are a lot of people watching the show and not the sport?
I don't know. I don't know how many people do that, but I did read today in Front Office Sports that F1 revenue rose 20% last year and the operating income doubled for teams, which is pretty crazy. And that is in large part due to people in North America who now are watching the sport. And I think attendance also either doubled or increased dramatically last year at races. So yes, the show has done a huge thing for the sport, and it's been a great entry point for people to get into the sport because it explains everything really well and introduces you to all the characters. But I think there's also just a lot of things they leave out, and it's only 10 episodes, and most of the episodes are pretty short too. So you get a certain side of things and you don't really get a full scope of everything that happened in the season, which is kind of what the show's billed as. It's like, oh, this is what happened in 2012.
Here we go. Top 5 omissions.
Top 5.
Well, I have 2 OLIs first.
Okay. What are the OLIs?
First OLI, they showed the race at Silverstone like 4 times, and they never mentioned that there were protesters on the track that almost stopped the race because people were protesting, I think, big oil. And it was a big deal, but then there was a crash, which they showed a bunch, which was very dangerous. So, like, they didn't gloss over that part, but they did not show any of the protests happening at this racetrack.
There was nearly a scenario where all the cars are going around the track at 180 miles an hour, and there's someone lying down in the middle of it.
People on the track. Yeah, it was crazy.
And just they ignored, hey, Big Oil has bought everything and is ruining the globe. Let's move on.
Big OLI.
But also, again, someone almost crashed before all the cars could get to these protesters.
Right.
Thus ruining their protest.
Very, very bizarre race. The second OLI, this is not like a political thing, but one of the biggest things that happened this year was a crash in which Charles Leclerc screamed on his radio, and they just completely left that out. That was part of the F1 Minute I did in French. That race. It was a very dramatic thing that happened. Wasn't in the show.
Or he's just screaming.
He just screamed on his radio.
Could you recreate?
But sadder.
Number 5.
There was an incident in Japan. The weather was terrible. The drivers could not see, and Pierre Gasly was driving pretty quickly, but there was a tractor on the track, and there could have been a really bad accident, which is something that Formula One has dealt with in the past, with Jules Bianchi dying during a race because of hitting a tractor that was on the track. So they did not show any of that in Netflix. It was the tractor was removing a car that had crashed, and there's supposed to be safety mechanisms in place where the tractor doesn't come out until after the drivers are either off the track or slow down or know that it's there. And the weather was so bad that he couldn't see it. So it was very, very, very dangerous. And the safety rules were not followed correctly. But Number 4. I mentioned this last week. There was a missile strike in Saudi Arabia, and there was a midnight drivers meeting where they were trying to decide if they were going to race that weekend or not. And they didn't show any of that on the Netflix show.
Just number 4 is a random missile strike.
Yes.
Just omitted. That seems to be fairly theatrical, dramatic, dangerous. Not going to reference it.
And there were all kinds of reporting around the drivers meeting that took place and whether or not they were going to race. There was which, by the way, it was ridiculous that they did. Why did they race? There was a missile strike.
It would be like the bubble game between the Bucks and Magic that got boycotted and triggered a bunch of other boycotts of games if someone did a reality show about the NBA that year and just conveniently just forgot about it.
Just not in the season. Yeah. Number 3, Sebastian Vettel and Lance Stroll, not in the season. Just 2 drivers they just didn't include. They gave 5 minutes to Sebastian. Sebastian Vettel is a world champion. He's been racing for decades. They showed his Instagram video where he announced he was retiring. They had a couple brief things with him, but he was not really in the season at all. And then they did basically an in memoriam for Daniel Ricciardo, who's not dead. He's just not racing on the grid next year, but also still part of.
Are they
Formula
not interesting
1.
enough? They're excellent enough. Are
Sebastian
they not?
Vettel, I think, is the most one of the most interesting
What would
people.
be the reason for cutting him out?
Didn't get a lot. Lance Stroll's dad owns his team, Aston Martin. Aston Martin did very poorly last year, and they've actually been featured in the show a lot in previous seasons, but they just weren't. They just were we're not going to put them on. So.
Number 2.
Now, this is a massive omission to me. Red Bull had a major fiasco in Brazil where Max Verstappen and his teammate Sergio Perez got in an argument about Verstappen didn't want Sergio Perez to get ahead of him to get more points for second place in the Drivers' Championship and kind of yelled on his radio about it, and it exposed that there is a massive schism between them on their team.
In Red Bull.
Team Red Bull drama, trouble in paradise. And
Nothing on this?
They didn't include. I didn't see it, and they also. So Red Bull also got in trouble around the same time because people found out that they went over the budget because there was a cost cap.
They didn't include that either?
No, they included that, but they framed it around Red Bull. And Christian Horner, who is an excellent evil villain, was super defensive the whole time and played the victim and acted like it was something that happened to Team Red Bull and was like, well, we checked a box wrong and we didn't mean to cheat, so it's technically not cheating. Which even if you don't mean to do it, you still went over your budget by $400,000. It's money you spent on something that another team didn't spend. So it was very controversial. They kind of framed it all around Red Bull and him kind of being offended that people were mad at him. And he claimed that, in an era of sensitivity towards mental health, he was really upset at the way that it was affecting him. The accusations were affecting his team, which is a little... co-opting language around mental health to be you guys are calling us cheaters and it's really mean. You guys did cheat. Even if you didn't mean to do it, it's okay. They still got to keep the trophy. They didn't really get punished. They got a fine. They got training time taken away this year. You guys you're getting away pretty easy. Just kind of admit you did it, and people I think would have forgotten about it easier. But no, there was a lot of hand wringing about that scandal.
Spoiler alert.
All of this is a spoiler.
It's a little late for that. Thank you, Chris. It's a little late in the game for that. If anybody wants to check out Drive to Survive. Number 1.
Valtteri Bottas' ass. One of the moments that went viral from last season, he went to Colorado and was naked in a creek, and picture blew up on social media. He gave a signed version of it to Lewis Hamilton. It was probably one of the best things that's happened in my life, but They just didn't include. He wasn't even in the season, like, at all. Valtteri Bottas, put him with Sebastian Vettel and Lance Stroll. He's not in the season. If you like him, just follow him on Instagram because you won't see him on Drive to Survive.
Now, you see, the menu is a lot simpler now. It gets to the point. Well done. Great job. This is a pod you can be proud of.
What is your obsession with this bar rescue show? What is your obsession with this Jon Taffer?
The entire time during our top 5, I was watching a YouTube called Jon Taffer's Angriest Moments compilation.
Oh, does the pirate?
He was yelling.
It's on mute and I can hear it.
Is the Pirates one in there?
There's
the Pirates one is the best.
The Pirates one?
Oh man,
I got to see the
But
Pirates
he went
one.
to a pirate
He
bar.
just shoved a guy right now.
Before we get to Amin's interest with Bar Rescue, we should tell you that top 5 was presented by DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Download the DraftKings app and use code DAN to get in on the action.
We got a top 5 from our friends at DraftKings. They do a tremendous job, and they've been very gracious with their support.
And now look at this urinal that you can pee in, but it looks like a fire hose.
I mean, most of your impressions are good. I'm just saying, like, you kill it all the time.
No, but this one's like the face thing.
No, but
It's
John,
like
what
visual.
people
Oh,
don't
you're still doing
understand,
it.
no, but his Jon Taffer is all a visual impersonation. He stormed in here.
It's just Amin opening his eyes.
Chris
POS
Cody,
systems.
he stormed in with no awareness, Chris Cody, derailed your bit because he thought you would recognize on his face how amazing his Jon Taffer was. The audience listening to this on audio had no idea what it is that he was doing.
Neither did we.
The joke is just all in his eyes. It's all in him moving around the plant, the imaginary giant fern that is in front of him in a bar as he yells at poor bar owners who are running their bar very poorly.
He also does a Stephen A. Smith thing where he starts off soft. How much money do you have in this bar? I've been working for 20 years,
The debt.
and I've never really seen anything like that. So what are you talking about? He's drunk! On the job! He put his mouth on that beer dispenser!
Yeah.
You can either save your marriage or save this bar.
Not both! 2 ounces. 2-finger bore! Butt funnel! He invented the boot funnel
it, yes.
along with Sunday Ticket.
Yes. It's such
No,
a great-
not a funnel that you put in your butt, Tony. It's a funnel. It's a funnel
Tony.
traffic.
Hello, Coach.
It's good to see you and hear you hoarse already. At March,
Hoarse already? This is the end, I mean.
March is here. No, but he's got to get ready for the tournament by being extra hoarse, by sounding. I don't know if this is the worst you sound. You're about to graduate into sounding worse than this, correct? You got to get the voice right so that in a couple of weeks you're just totally shot and your press conferences sound like static, correct?
Are we on the air now? Are we off?
We're on the air.
We're going right to it. We're on the air.
I love it. I love it. Well, the truth of it is that I'm, I always get accused of yelling at my players, but if you want the truth, Dan, it's one of those things where if I don't sleep, my voice goes. Everybody's got different problems. My voice goes. So I either say I'm yelling at my wife or I'm not sleeping. Pick one or two. But I'm always treating those players with kid gloves because you have to treat them these days. You got to hug and kiss them now. You can't tell them what they did wrong anymore.
Well, this is what Stugotz just got done saying, that he has seen a kinder, gentler Tom Izzo at this point in the season. I'm like, is there such a thing? Like, I would think that's covered in barbed wire at this time of year if you're losing.
Well, Stugotz, I hope you're wrong because I don't want to be that, but it has been a little bit of a difficult time around here in the last 3 weeks, and it's some things are bigger than games, and but I like everybody else. I mean, you guys have done the same thing. You have to change a little bit with the way things are going, and so you make adjustments. You just hope they're not total changes because I still believe that to win championships, there's certain ways to get it done, and it's usually not the easy way.
Tom, that's what I was telling Dan. Since the tragic events at your university 3 weeks ago, I have noticed a different sideline demeanor where you're gentler with the kids. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, everybody, as they say, goes through grief and tragedies differently. And, I'm one of those guys. I never treated everybody the same, even though people think so. I really don't. But in this way, you're talking to so many medical people and everything and trying to figure out how do you get the most out of them, who handles things differently. So a lot more meetings, a lot more talks with guys, and try to adjust a little bit. Maybe that's why we've been so up and down in some games. We're playing real good, then we're playing bad. Last night we were playing real bad, and then we played real good. But I think, like Dan said, hell, it's March. There is no greater month than March, guys. It's just the way the world works. It's the greatest month ever. So I'm looking forward to March.
A couple of questions I want to ask you off of what you said, though, because it sounds like you're weaving between the importance of basketball and trauma counselors and real life stuff that no one should have to endure. And you're also lamenting, Tom, and you sound like an old guy, but you also sound like a champion. Man, today's kids, I can't deal with kids the way that I used to deal with kids. I have to change, not them.
Well, I have to adjust. If I change too much, I think you see the real champion coaches over the years. Steve Kerr might do it a little different than Bill Belichick. Nick Saban, who was here, Nick hasn't changed a lot, but a little bit. And I just think we have to adjust a little bit. But to win big, it's still grinding, and there's not a lot of shortcuts. There's not a lot of easy ways, and you try to do your best. But the last couple of years, the way everything has happened, I think kids have gone a little bit too far to that one side or the other also. So maybe coaches were that way at one time. Kids are that way. Maybe we meet in the middle, and then everything goes better.
What are the things from 20 years ago that you long for the most in your sport?
Well, I like to be able to tell a kid that he's not very good and not have a lawyer sue me. How's that? That'd be one thing I see different. But, I just think in general, we've had a lot of rule changes. Of course, the NLI and the transfer rule is, some like it, some don't. I have my own opinions on it just because I think at the end of the day, even though an 18-year-old is, I guess, considered a man, I didn't think I was a man until I was about 25. But I think a lot of kids are going to make bad decisions. So I worry about the decisions kids are making. And if you have the freedom to do everything, I don't know where the three of us would be if we were back 18 and allowed to do whatever we wanted. And that's kind of the way it is right now.
Aren't you governing, though, Tom, basically with all the changes going on in the sport, the mercenary nature now brazenly in front of us with NIL, are you now not navigating an entirely new landscape for you that's a bit confusing?
Oh, there's no question, Dan. I think it's confusing for everybody. I mean, it's definitely got to be confusing for the NCAA because they didn't. I don't think anybody's handled it real well. And yet, at the end of the day, I'm going to find players. And I'm going to, I hope I'm going to do my job to keep my job. It's the players that I still believe can lose out. You transfer 4 different schools. Where do you go when you need a job? I mean, because 99% of these guys aren't making it to the pros. It's only 1% that are making it in football and basketball. So I think there's a lot of unintended consequences with this that I've had a problem with, but as everything else in life, I'll, give me the rules. I'll abide by the rules. The hard part is right now in college sports, there are no rules. So we're going to all, we're learning as we go, and we'll see what happens.
Coach, the Phoenix Suns sale was finalized. Matt Ishbia is the new owner. He was a player on your teams in the early 2000s, late 90s. What can you tell us about Matt Ishbia as a player?
Well, I'll tell you that he was my greatest walk-on ever.
That's something you want to be?
But Matt Ishbia as a player, he was, as they say in Rudy, he was 5'0", 100 and had a heart as big as a lion. He was played on the same AAU team with Jason Richardson. So I I think I took Matt to get Jason later on, and that was a good move on my part too. So I'm 2 for 2 on Matt Ishbia moves, but unbelievable driven kid. He was that way. He used to go against Mateen Cleaves every day, and they were not similar in athletic ability or skill level, but Matt competed every day. And then he took that. He almost stayed in coaching. He was going to stay in coaching, and he was at a game early in the year. We played Villanova. We had a 16-point lead and almost lost it. And he was sitting there on the floor, and I walked by him. I said, "Man, I'm sure happy you chose business over this board." He did it well. And I think he's going to be a great owner, guys. I think there's owners that own teams for popularity. I think there's owners that own teams as toys. There's some owners that own teams to win championships. I promise you, this guy's going to be driven to win a championship.
Tom, tell us the story that we don't know about how close you almost came to being LeBron's coach, but you couldn't reach him back when he was in Cleveland. You were trying to decide whether to leave Michigan State and go coach LeBron. I think in retrospect, that would have been a good thing to do, but you couldn't physically reach him. You couldn't reach him on the phone either. Tell us what we don't know about how close that came to happening.
Well, as you know, Dan Gilbert is a Michigan State guy, and it was a hell of an offer. I was making good money, but that was great money. And it was a week before LeBron's decision. Now, I wanted to talk to him, and I think I could have. I did recruit him a hair when he was a freshman. We had won the national championship or been in it real close to then. And, and LeBron was coming out, or he was still in high school. And so we were one of the schools that were recruiting him. But I realized that after his freshman year, he was going pro. But I did talk to Maverick, some of his guys, Rich Paul, and only thing I wanted to know, guys, I wasn't dumb enough to think he was going to tell me whether he was staying or going, because his decision was a week later. But what I wanted to know is whether he would accept a college coach or not. Because in any coaching, in college, high school, pro, a coach better get along with his best player. And so that's the only thing I wanted to know. And I'm not sure the administration thought that was a good idea, but that's what I wanted to do. And I got my answers, and I was at Draymond Green's wedding this year, and LeBron was there, and it was funny because that was over 20 years ago now.
Coach, can you, if you wouldn't mind, can you put us where you were and what was going on inside your head the night of the shootings at East Lansing?
Yeah, I had my radio show that night. Otherwise, I'd have been at work. And my radio show 7 to 8. I got out of it, and about 8:20, everything started to blow up. And my son actually went over to the building, one of the buildings, and was picking up his girlfriend, and ran out of there. And he ended up coming back to Breslin here, our arena, and locked himself in a suite. But it was a crazy night, guys, and it was a shame what everybody had to go through. I thought our people here and the police and everybody, within 2 hours they had them. And it's hard to find a guy on a campus like this walking the streets, but they did an incredible job. And yet we still lost 3 lives. We have 5. In fact, I'm going to the hospital this afternoon to visit a couple of them. We have 5 still in the hospital. But it was a tragedy, and it makes you realize there's more than sports. But what I try to look at is sports, like, I was able to be on the field the first game after 9/11. The 49ers, my buddy Mariucci was the head coach, played the Giants. And I flew out to New York for that game. And I realized what sports can do on the other side, with a tragedy, it can bring everybody together. So that's what I've tried to do in the last 2-3 weeks, sometimes successful, sometimes not.
What have you learned about grief and things that you did not know as these experts come through your campus to help you with some of the collateral damage here that you may not have known could exist?
Yeah, I've learned a lot. I mean, I got to admit, I think the best thing I learned was everybody's going to handle it differently, and everybody's going to hide it differently, especially as an athlete. As an athlete, we're supposed to be macho guys. We're supposed to never cry, never let things bother us, things like that, and they do. And so dealing with those people, but you're right, the medical specialists really helped. The next day we were on the phone with them, we were on a Zoom call, and And then just spending time with your guys. You know, I think there's something that you really need to do, and that's spend time with your guys and let them know they're not alone. Try to help them through, and everybody handles it differently. And that is what I've had the hardest time to deal with. Is I'm still trying to push a guy to beat Indiana, or Michigan was the first game after it, but still understand that this has been tough. Some of them were friends with some of those people. Some of them knew people that knew people. So it's been, I guess you never quit learning. And maybe I'm in the back nine of my career, but I'm still learning.
Well, it's interesting to me, Tom, because we've always loved talking to you, and you have to, at this point, as Jim Boeheim is whatever age he is, and he's talking, the crowd gathers around him trying to get him out at Syracuse, and he's saying other teams have bought teams because it's a new time, and you're one of the champion dinosaurs. You come from a different time, and you love kids, you love teaching, but it's never been like this in college basketball. So can you give me the 3 examples of you coming in the morning after many years doing this and saying to yourself, I'm too old for this shit. I'm still doing this. I still love it, but I am too old to be dealing with this particular shit.
God, you put it really nice. I love the way you put it. And I would say this. What I get caught doing a little bit is saying I still love my job, but I'm a little disappointed in my profession. The way it's gone, the NCAA, I just don't think we've handled things very well. And some of it's unhandleable because lawyers are smarter than anybody, and they can find ways to get around things. But I'll be honest with you guys, the day I come in and say I can't, and I've talked a lot to Mike Krzyzewski and Roy Williams and Lon Kruger, and Jay Wright is a good friend of mine that has been we're on some boards together, and I respect especially Jay because he's young yet. I respect the fact that he said I don't want to do it this way, and still happy with everything. Didn't condemn anybody, just not with his cup of tea. So that's what I'll be the minute I don't come into the office after a tough night and want to get back on the horse, or whether I don't take red eyes from Vegas to Orlando. And that's, when those days come, I'm getting out. There'll be no hanging on. I don't need to hang on. I don't want to hang on, but I do tell you this. I still got some juice left. I'm like you guys, you guys still got some juice left. I still got some juice left.
But Coach, I feel like it's 2 different conversations. One is, like Dan put very eloquently, I'm too old for this shit. And then the other conversation is the way this is going. Earlier you made a joke about not being able to tell a kid that he can't play without having his lawyer hit you up. That's kind of separate from, hey, I've been doing this a long time, right? That's man, the way we're doing this now is just so crazy and upside down. So I guess how much of that fatigues you?
A lot. Yeah, I think that's a fair question. A lot. And what fatigues me is I just know that some of this might be good, and you get guys that say coaches can leave, and we have buyouts. We have so much BS to a lot of that stuff. But you also pay your dues. I've been here 39 years. And I just think we're teaching kids to just bolt the minute things don't go your way. And I don't think the real world's like that. So I worry about that. But at the same time, I try to find a happy medium to still understand what they can do and what they may do, but try to help them figure out that later on in life, you're gonna want a school to come back to. And you usually can't come back to 4 of them, or you're going to want a coach to come back to, and a fan base. And, we're in a transit world. We all understand that it's more transactional now. But people say, you guys are like pro football or pro basketball. I say, hell no, we're not. They have contracts and salary caps. We don't have either one. So we have free agency every 6 months. And I think that's a little difficult for a coach. But I think, guys, and this is where I think I'm a little different, I think it's going to hurt the player in the end.
Coach, you talk about not being able to talk to players like you used to. Draymond Green is probably the best example of this. He's talked about when he went to go play for Coach Kerr. He told him, you got to go crazy on me like Coach Izzo did, because he doesn't respond to kind of the warm, cuddly, give me a hug, coach. He wants kind of to be barked at. So I want to know your best story about barking at Draymond Green to get him to do something.
Oh God, guys, is this a 2-hour show? Because I got a lot of half times and timeouts that would.
Your best one. Draymond. Give us the best one though. But he likes fire. Draymond's perfect for you because he's not going to be too sensitive. You're going to know which buttons to hit.
Well, I wouldn't say he's not sensitive now. I mean, he didn't like everything that went on all the time either. But you know what I loved about him? He was about winning. But one of my favorite stories of Draymond, we were in a timeout, and I had these clipboards, and whenever he'd start. And I'd finally break the clipboard over my knee and say, hey, you know what? It's time to shut up. Can we, we only got a minute in this timeout. So I went to grab the clipboard. I went to break it over my knee and it didn't crack. And so I looked up and I could tell everybody was ready to laugh, but I was too mad. So I went to crack it again and it didn't crack. No. I find out later that my managers had changed the cardboard ones into new fiberglass ones. And so Draymond's comment was, hey, coach, you better get in the weight room. And the whole huddle broke up. We went out and won the game big. And so I always give Draymond credit. You know what? I always figure that if I can give something, I better be able to take something. And Draymond pushed that to a new level. But I swear to God, guys, I love the guy, and I know there's always some points about him, but they don't win the 4 championships without him. No matter how good Steph is and Clay is and this and that, he is just the heart and soul. And when it's winning time, man, we went to 2 Final Fours with him and won a lot of games. At winning time, he answers the bell.
Did you stop by the weed bar at Draymond's wedding? I mean, have to ask you, Coach.
I didn't. I still have some standards I try to keep up to, but it was a great wedding, and I had some fun. It was a gorgeous wedding, but no, I went old school on that a little bit.
Contact
always love seeing you, Coach. Want to tell people about the Spartan Strong Fund because you're trying still in the Wild Wild West to do some good work out there and to raise awareness and some money. So tell us about the Spartan Strong Fund, please.
Well, of course, we're trying to raise money for these 3 victims that the families that have lost their sons and daughters, and then we've got 5 that are still in the hospital, 1 from China, 1 from different parts of the world. Families had to fly in, so we are trying to get people to donate and help out, and a lot of people have, and I appreciate you even bringing it up because I value your guys' shows, Stugotz, you and Dan. I don't get to see you as much as I should. I'm glad you had me on because I always liked your candor, and you're the Bobby Knight of radio. You say what you want, when you want, where you want, and I love that about you.
Not sure that's a compliment.
You're getting emotional on me.
It is from me.
Right.
It is from you. Okay.
Are you getting emotional? You're crying. You're making me cry.
The Bobby Knight of radio. Just some old guys cutting it up. But I do want to bring attention. Our people generally support very strongly the causes that we send them to. And obviously, you guys are suffering. Obviously, this was not something that anyone around there had ever considered a possibility.
No, especially the way it happened. I mean, it wasn't anybody from the school. It was a guy from the community, and there were just no ties. Like sometimes you think, well, maybe it's racial, or maybe it's a prof flunked a guy or something. There just seems to be no rhyme or reason for anything, and senseless killings are so bad because it just makes you sit there and think, and then you put your own kids in there, and it makes you sick. So hopefully, we'll all do a better job in controlling these senseless killings around our country. And I appreciate any support people give these families because that's who it's for.
One of the things, Tom, over the years that people remember you doing with us is trying poorly but valiantly to sing Christmas songs on your accordion.
One of the great moments all time
one
in
of
show
the great
history.
moments in our
Yes.
show's history. I don't know what is around that office after you're a king and you've been working there for 40 years. The things in that office, that grandiose office that you have, that you would show off if you had to impress a stranger. Do you have? I don't think the accordion is there.
Has to be there.
The accordion's only there for the holidays.
Dude,
That's
the
what it's all-
accordion's right here.
Yeah!
Oh my God, he's got it! What is
It's
that?
right here, man.
It is
The accordion's
March.
right here.
Right?
Oh my
It-
God.
It is March. Do we have any chance whatsoever? Is it too complicated to pull it out? Because
Dude,
I thought
way too complicated. That's once a year at Christmas.
Okay.
All right.
And I bring my players there to sing at my radio show
Yep.
because they suck. They're the worst singers in America. And it drowns out the bad accordion playing. But, maybe I'll practice once. You guys have me on again, and
Yes.
I'll play Jingle Bells if you two sing. How's
Okay,
that?
yes, we will do
Yes.
it together. I can't believe it was at your knee. I was asking about the
Why?
the glory. Do you carry it everywhere? Why is it at
You
your knee?
ain't got to get ready if you stay ready, Dan.
You guys are right on, man.
Anything else in that office that you'd use to impress a stranger if you had to? An heirloom, something of sentimental value.
The ring on your finger.
Yeah, there's
I'm looking around, I don't know. I just got a lot of great pictures of all the great players that have helped me stay in this office. That's the critical part. I'm not in this office because of me. I'm in the office because of the players who played here, and a lot of great guys. And, I've been lucky, guys, because my players come back. I didn't coach Magic, but from Magic to Draymond to JR. And I've had Zach Randall. There's so many guys that come back every year, and that's a lot of fun for me. That's almost more fun than winning.
Tom, always great seeing your face. Thank you, sir.
Hey, guys, I appreciate you, man. Good luck. And remember now, sometime this summer, let's do a little duet here. Me playing, you two singing.
Done.
It'll be the worst rated show in America.
Yes. Especially because it's Jingle Bells in June. It's strange time for it. Thank you, sir.
Coach.
See you guys.
Thank you, Coach.